Welcome, everyone, to another episode of 10 Words or Less, in which I ask brief questions of interesting people and ask for brief answers in return. I'm Michael Prager, a well-being coach, author, and professional speaker who began doing this sort of interview when I was working at the Boston Globe. Today's guest is Joan Ifland, whom I met at least 10 years ago at a conference she organized in Houston for food addiction professionals. She's one of my first return invitees among the 50-plus fascinating folks who have participated, many of them clinicians, nutritionists, and researchers in the field of food. You can see video and edited text versions at michaelprager.com/10wordsorless. One of Joan's first claims to fame is being the lead author of the first academically published description of food addiction in humans. She later founded Victory Meals, which makes and distributes healthy, unprocessed food meals and other products, and she operates a several thousand member strong private group on Facebook, helping those who struggle with food addiction. For those of you playing at home, please respect my usual proviso. 10 words or less is an intention, not a limit. So please, no counting. And if you think it's so easy, let's see you do it. Okay, Joan, even though we've done this before, which makes it even more tedious, perhaps, I still like to start with, please spell your first and last names as you wish them to appear.
My first name is Joan, Joan, and my last name is Ifland, and that's I-F as in Frank, L-A-N-D.
Okay. Born when and where, please be as specific as you're willing to be.
I was born in Beaver Falls, Pennsylvania, October 25th, 1951.
Excellent. Where do you live now?
I live in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay. Tell me about your family circumstance. Married, kids, pets, parents, whatever you want.
I am soon to be a grandmother.
Congratulations, Joan.
Yes, my oldest daughter is expecting a son in December. So we just have her in our prayers and thoughts, a baby boy. So yes, and I have a younger daughter. So my older daughter, Claire, works for Kindle in London. And my younger daughter, Camille, is a doctor working in Seattle. And I am divorced.
C-L-A-I-R-E?
Yes.
And C-A-M-I-L-L-E?
Yes.
Okay, and what kind of doctor is Camille? I didn't know this.
Camille is an internist, but she is a very interesting internist, in my opinion. She took her MD and her MBA from University of Michigan. So she is specializing in administration. And I just think that that is such a precious field right now where all kinds of health delivery systems are struggling with how to really maintain the quality of their services in a cost-effective way. So I'm very proud of both of them.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Every time I do one of these things, even people I've known for a while, I learn new stuff. That's very interesting. So tell me,
I'm very proud of.
I can see why. So tell me this, what's the first news event that you remember, one that, has stuck with you?
Oh, I grew up in Cincinnati, and I learned to reading the Cincinnati Enquirer. And it was a very confusing thing because the name of the baseball team was the Reds. And the name of our enemy at that time was also the Reds, the communists. So I remember having to ask my mother which red was in the headline. So it was one of those.
I remember that, not, it wasn't my hometown team, but I remember for a while they wanted to be called the Cincinnati Redlegs because that way they wouldn't be confused with the bad guys.
Right.
Okay, tell me.
So much, yeah.
An early influence on you outside your immediate family.
Kay Shepherd. Kay Shepherd is my hero.
Okay, tell me a little bit more about that, please.
Well, she saved my life in 1996. I picked up her book. I eliminated sugars and flours from my food plan. I joined a support group, and my life changed radically. And that's how I got into this field.
Got it. Got it.
Yeah.
As I think you know, it's probably not the first fact you carry around with you, but Kay wrote the foreword to my first book. And come to think of it, she offered to do that when I was in Houston at a conference with you. So thank you.
Yes.
So what did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be a vet. We had cats and a dog growing up, and I wanted to take care of animals.
How long did that last?
Not very long. By the time I was actually in school, I was taking economics, political science. I took my MBA, and I wanted to be like my dad. My dad was a corporate executive. He was a corporate scientist, and I wanted to be like him.
Got it. Tell me your first experience of food-centered community.
It is my earliest memory. I was trying to manipulate an ice cream truck driver into letting me have something for free. That is my earliest memory.
One of my first ones has to do with ice cream as well. I wonder if that's just a kid thing. But anyway, tell me, how can someone be addicted to food? Don't you need food to survive?
There are two kinds of food, just like there are two kinds of beverages: alcoholic, non-alcoholic, and then in the food realm, addictive, non-addictive.
Okay, but that's a very good start. And yes, I appreciate you're a very good 10 words or less respondent. I appreciate that.
I'm trying.
But in this case, you've given me some information. I'd like a little more, please. How can someone be addicted to food?
Because processed foods are processed like drugs. So they're concentrated, extracted, refined, fermented. Things are done to plants to make them into drugs. And those same kinds of things are done to plants to make them into addictive foods. So biochemically, these are not foods. They're not activating the feeding pathways in the brain. They're activating the addictive pathways in the brain. And that, neurochemically speaking, that's how you make the difference.
Excellent. Excellent. You know, I was recently on a panel in San Francisco at the Commonwealth Club with, among others, Rob Lustig of UCSF.
Right.
And he made that argument. He said, refined sugar is not a food.
Right.
It is an additive, and additives can be are regulated by the FDA in a way that sugar wouldn't be. And you know, the first time he said it, I thought, come on, this panel is about food addiction. Why are we trying to say that this obvious food isn't a food? But when I heard the fullness of his argument, and I relate to what you're saying now, you know, I start to get it.
Yeah, it's in the brain reaction. You know, you just connect those two dots. You connect the processing of the food and the brain reaction, and it's very hard to wrap your mind around it, but you have an addictive substance. Now, it's no longer a food. Without the processing, yes, it could be a food. But once you've processed it, it's no longer a food. It's an addictive substance. It's over here with cocaine, heroin, alcohol. It's over there.
Well, I'll share this with you if, you know, I think it fits right in. You might already have this stuff in your quiver, but I'd like to say, when I'm speaking, one of the analogies I make is you take these 4 plants from nature: the poppy, the coca plant, wheat, and sugarcane, say.
Yep.
In all four cases, it's a plant that grows out of the ground and has one effect if ingested or enjoyed, because the poppy plant is slightly different. We don't eat poppy flowers. But if you take these things and either mechanically and or chemically break apart the constituents that go into the plant, remove some of them, in all four cases it includes the fiber, and intensify what's left, in all four cases you end up with a whitish powder.
Right.
Heroin, cocaine, sugar, and flour. Now,
Right.
that does not say that sugar and flour have the same effect or the same intensity as heroin, cocaine. But the fact is, heroin and cocaine don't have the same effect or the same intensity. But they're all on a continuum of taking what nature made and turning them into something that we put in our bodies, and it has a drastically different effect. And I ran this by, I did one of these interviews with Mark Gold, whom I know you know.
Yes.
And he's one of the foremost educators in the world on addiction. And I said,
Yes.
I've been saying this, and it sure sounds like it makes sense, but am I correct from a researcher's point of view? He said, right on the money. So
yes.
Definitely use that.
I would add two things to what you said. There is some evidence that sugar is worse than cocaine and heroin.
Tell me more.
Two studies come to mind. One, Serge Ahmed, of course, at the University of Bordeaux, has shown that rats will choose sugar and saccharin over heroin and cocaine. And then recently, a very good study showed it, again, this was a rat study, that when you administer sugar and cocaine similarly, in other words, when the rat kind of snorts the sugar will reach the dopamine pathways faster, and it will elicit a bigger response than the cocaine. So we have some evidence that sugar is worse than heroin and cocaine in some ways. And then when you mix in the fact that it's much more available, it's legal, it's readily available, people have been so exposed to it that their brains are sensitized to react to it with cravings. You really have a pretty darn good argument that sugar and even high fructose corn syrup might be more dangerous, not just because of the chemical properties, but also in the way they're distributed, priced, et cetera, and advertised, that they might be more dangerous to our culture than heroin and cocaine. The argument is there.
Okay, Joan, I'm with you mostly, but there are people who are going to see this and say, these people are just around the bend. I have sugar. I'm an addict. I like sugar. It tastes good. And I don't rob people to get money, and I don't break into houses. What are they talking about? What do you say?
Because the substances are legal, because they haven't been criminalized, like marijuana has been criminalized, then people don't attach that big negative effect that you're talking about. But if you look at actually the mortality figures, processed foods are killing a lot more people than heroin even. And Ohio is the epicenter of a recent epidemic of heroin use. And there are really serious deaths in this state. I think over 2,000 people in 1 year died from heroin. This is very scary. The media aggrandizes it, and it's all over the place. And the health officials have this huge response. I was just looking at a report. This is a 2-page report about all the things that the Ohio officials are doing to combat this heroin addiction. Now, if they were doing all these things to combat sugar and processed foods, the deaths from processed foods would be plummeting. But instead, it's the deaths from heroin. So another great analogy, I think, that helps us understand the situation is to tobacco. So in 1964, the Surgeon General issued his opinion that tobacco was harmful. For 45 years, Congress did nothing. And then finally, 45 years later, Kennedy got the Family Tobacco Act passed. So we're just in that stage of learning how damaging processed foods are.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, how many food addicts do you think there are?
Well, there are now 2 billion overweight and obese people on the face of the earth. In my doctoral work, I did correlate obesity with severity of addiction. It's not perfect. It's not a great correlation, but there is a correlation there. So I think there could be an argument made that this epidemic of overweight and obesity is correlated with food addiction.
Okay. Describe your Facebook group, please.
Oh, this has been incredible. So, you know, I'm editing a textbook on food addiction. And to do that, 2 years ago, I started catching up on the new research. And what I saw in the new research was a lot of what's called cognitive impairment, inability to learn, to make decisions, to exercise restraint, to remember, to experience satiation. That's like the researchers turned en masse to this topic of what is going on in the brain of an obese people. And what they discovered is pretty horrific. And of course, the media ignores it. So what I saw was that that's on the one hand, we have this, you can call it brain damage. It's reversible, it's repairable. You can restore the brain. The brain's very responsive to restoration efforts. But I think it's appropriate to call it brain damage. And the nature of the brain damage is such that it's particularly pertinent for food addicts because we have to learn something. We have to learn how to make meals. We have to learn how to shop. We have to learn how to teach our household members not to leave processed foods around. We have to work with our colleagues in our workplace. And so there's a lot to learn, to remember. Every time you go in the grocery store, you have to make dozens and dozens of decisions. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is a breakthrough in understanding how to help people with food addiction. And I thought, you know what? Facebook is a great way to teach because you can put on very short messages, you can repeat them, you can use pictures. There's a natural built-in support. So I started the group. I started the group a year and a half ago, and I watched it over the year. And then I said, you know what? This is not enough. So I started small confidential groups called intensives, food addiction intensive. And then after watching that a couple of months, I said, no, this is still not enough. And I added a daily phone call. I remembered that maxim from the 12-step groups, 90 meetings in 90 days. So I started a nightly phone call. The replays of the phone calls are available to members of the intensive. And boom, all of a sudden, people started turning around reliably. So that's the piece that I really was looking for, something that is reliable, that if somebody can do all these things, they will make progress. So something happened in the beginning of June, and all of a sudden people started pouring into that group. And now we are adding about 1,000 people every 25 days. So it's not exactly viral, but people are pouring into that group.
So
and
how many people do you have?
Gratifying. This last night we turned 6,600. So we've added we've added 2,600 people since June 2nd.
Wow.
We've added
2,000 demand for this.
Yeah, 2,600 people since June 2nd.
Okay. That was, again, no counting, but I'm pretty sure that was more than 10 words. So I'll just point that out as I go to my next question. Why would you say you're suited to lead this group?
In anticipation of this interview, I asked people in that group why they liked the group. And their top answer was information. People want to know what the heck happened to them. How did they get this disease? And why is nothing working? So that was the top answer.
Okay, that's useful, and I'm going to use that in this other project I've got going, which maybe I'll get to. But why are you suited to lead the group?
There were two other answers. The two other top answers were the non-judgmental, accepting nature of the group. And I think that because of my reading of the research, I understand the disease. I mean, I think I have a very deep understanding of the disease. It's a horrific disease, and it's been made worse by the health community, which has tried to frame this very severe mental condition as a weight loss issue, by the diet industry trying to frame it as a cosmetic issue. This is a very serious mental condition. And then the third, sorry, that's too many words.
Yeah, I'm, well, let's move on. If it's important, it'll come back. Thank you for that answer. That was helpful. What drives you?
I think because I got out of this mess and the suffering is so severe that because I have an answer, it's just an answer in my personal opinion. I want to make that answer available, because the difference between being in the addiction and the pain of the addiction versus this kind of simple way of getting out of it is, it's huge. I mean, the difference between being in the pain of the addiction and being out of the addiction is huge, as you know, Michael.
I do. And really, when you frame it like that, we're doing the same thing. We're just doing it in different ways.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what holds you back?
Time and money, you know, time and money.
Okay. Tell me something that works really well.
Looking at pictures of clean meals. So my understanding of the disease is that this is a disease of environment. We caught this disease from our environments. We caught it from watching television advertisements for addictive foods over and over and over again. And so to promote recovery from the disease, we're creating a new environment at Facebook in the intensives. Lots of pictures of clean food, lots of kind people, friendly, supportive people, and lots of education. So that combination, what we're really trying to do is persuade the brain that we've moved to a new tribe, we've moved to a new country, these are the customs of this country. And so when you gently surround the brain with this new environment, the brain will just come right around. And the trick is to persuade the addict to surround the brain. So, you know, it's a very slow process. We take things very slowly. It's analogous to putting together a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle where you're just putting in maybe one little piece this week. Okay, next week you might consider another piece, but it has to be done very slowly and caringly. You have to care and be kind.
Joan, I have to tell you that my computer is telling me it's going to run out of power soon. When I came downstairs, I was at 75%. I thought, oh, that'll definitely be enough. But my computer may fail before we finish. And if that happens, I'll plug it back in and I'll call you back. That's disappointing.
Okay. Okay.
Who knew that this?
No problem.
Okay. How do members help each other?
I think the primary reason that the groups are working is the kindness. Members help each other by being kind and by sharing their experiences, by sharing the information. I think that, you know, we do have a very, very clean food plan in the food addiction education group and in the intensives. And I think that when members can explain to one another why certain foods are off our lists, it's really helpful. It's really helpful.
Okay. How does one join?
So go to Facebook and do a search for food addiction education. And then click on the join group link. And then we have monitors, volunteer monitors, who will admit the person right away. The other good place to get help is the website, foodaddictionintensive.com, and you can register for the intensive there. Our fees are very, very low. If there is an income in the household, it's $15 a week. If the household is on assistance of any kind, it's $20 a month. And if the person on assistance is supporting somebody else, the fee is waived. And we will always work with people.
Gotcha.
I'm about to open a new website called Food Addiction Books. So that's another resource.
Got it. Something about you that people find surprising.
I have 6,000 studies in my database. I don't know. That's a surprising amount of research. I think people are surprised that there is so much research to support overeating as a mental condition.
Okay. Something about people that you find surprising.
How well they get, how quickly, when they give up the processed foods, how well they get, how quickly.
Good answer. Thank you. Tell me, what's a favorite dish of yours?
Well, in my refrigerator right now, I have a spaghetti squash with tomato, pepper, onion, and I fried turkey patties this morning. So that is one of my favorites. It has cumin seed in it and rosemary, and it's fabulous.
Okay. What's the last book you read?
Oh gosh, right now I am reading. So the last book that I finished is a beautiful, an exquisite book called A Little Life. And right now I'm reading a book about the end of the Vietnam War called The Sympathizer. Both very powerful books.
What's something you do for fun?
I walk. I live next door to a beautiful park. I have a new rule. I am not allowed to open my computer until I have been for my walk. So I live in this, just next door to this beautiful park, Eden Park. And so I walk every morning.
Excellent.
And my other fun thing is Lumosity. So Lumosity is a brain training website. There is published research on its efficacy. And I am shocked that at age 64, my brain is working as well as it's working. Like, I'm even competitive with much younger people, according to Lumosity, I should say.
Okay, tell me someone you haven't mentioned already who deserves more credit than they get.
Well, this is not the answer that you're looking for, but let me try it out on you.
Okay.
And this is very, very negative. So forewarned is forearmed. I think the neuroscientists who work for the food industry should get more credit for the mess than they get.
Okay. Do you know any names of those people?
No, I know one very courageous soul who used to direct research for one of the big food processing companies, who is now a whistleblower. His name is Dr. Lee, L-E-E, and I'm sorry I don't remember his first name, but he's been on national television, and he is exposing, well, what he shares is that when he was director of research, there were 3 scientists who were given the job of making the food addictive. And he uses that word. So yeah, those neuroscientists are powerful. The book, Sugar, Fat, Salt, you will remember the name of that author. He describes one of these scientists. Thank you. He describes one of these scientists in detail as he's formulating products that go around the satiation circuitry in the brain. I think these individuals deserve a lot of credit for creating the obesity epidemic, and they don't get it.
That's a pretty good answer.
I'm sorry that was so negative.
No, that was pretty good. Tell me, God forbid.
Calling it like I see it.
God forbid, but if you needed one now, what would your epitaph be?
A lover of food addicts.
Okay. What's a question I should have asked you?
Oh, you should have asked me about the textbook.
Okay. Tell me about your textbook.
Thank you, Michael. I have a contract with Taylor and Francis, CRC, to edit this textbook, and I'm very grateful to the neuroscientists who have contributed chapters. It will have 3 parts. It'll be the foundation, the scientific foundation for the disease. The second section will be on assessment, and I will be using the DSM assessment criteria that are used for alcoholism. They fit food addiction incredibly well. And I think that section of the book particularly will be illustrative to health professionals as to what is the nature of the disease and is it really a substance use disorder. So there's a great deal of confusion out there about whether we have a substance use disorder or a behavioral disorder. Now, because substances are involved, addictive substances that have, for which there is evidence of addictive properties, in my opinion, we have a substance use disorder. So section 2 of the textbook, I think, will give health professionals a great deal of comfort that yes, we are dealing with a substance use disorder. And I've invited food addiction professionals to help me develop the evidence for that chapter, or that section, and it's going extremely well. It's very, very powerful. And I have learned things that are shocking to me in the course of developing that section. Now, the third section is very exciting. Doug Zadonis, who is the chairman of the psychiatry department at University of Massachusetts, is collaborating with me on it, and it is the treatment section. So we are using a lot of classic addiction recovery techniques and adapting them to food addiction. And yeah, he's being super helpful. And I'm very grateful to have my 2 co-editors, Harry Pruse, who's a longtime member of the faculty of Georgetown Medical School and really the founder of the American College of Nutrition, and then Marianne Marcus, who's a chaired professor of addictions in nursing at the University of Texas School of Nursing. She is emeritus, and yeah, it's an incredible team putting this textbook together, and I feel very hopeful that this could help health professionals become comfortable with looking for the disease and then applying appropriate treatment, because this is not a weight loss issue. And then I'm especially hopeful that health professionals will start to look for food addiction in children. So there's a half of the treatment section, not quite half, will be about how to identify food addiction in children using these same DSM criteria, and then how to teach parents to manage this mental condition in their children. So thank you for asking about the textbook.
Sure. Well, looks like we're going to make it, although it could still die any second. Joan, thank you very much for spending the time here. And
thank you, Mike.
You bet. I wanted to mention, you know this, I think. I'm doing a project for Northeastern University around food and community, and that was one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you today. And I will use some of your comments in the type of food community that you've built, and I appreciate your sharing that information with me especially. We're in touch every once in a while, and until the next time, thank you very much.
Take care, Michael. Thank you.
Bye, Joan.
Bye-bye.